Yeah, this is my gardening hat. I'm not gonna go buy a straw hat just for the thumbnail. One Piece came out last week along with Wheel of Time and another episode of Ahsoka, and the three shows together got me thinking about how a show really needs to know what its audience is, who it's really made for, especially if it's an adaptation of some kind or based on some existing material. Ahsoka is a brand new spin-off of existing shows with existing characters. It's a great time to onboard a new audience, but they had to balance that with serving their core audience, so kind of a 50-50 for that show. Wheel of Time is an adaptation of a hugely popular book series. Their focus should have been primarily on their automatic, built-in audience, fans of that book series. It should have been sloppy fan servicing. Should have been.
I was rooting for you! We were all rooting for you! How dare you!
And that brings us back to One Piece. Who exactly should this show be for? Well, in my opinion, they should be focused primarily on a brand new audience that has little to no experience with the anime or manga, but sprinkle in just enough fan service so that they give it good word of mouth. I don't believe this live action adaptation needed to be aimed at anime fans because that anime is already an adaptation of the best-selling manga of all time. Thanks, Wikipedia. I've spoken before that an adaptation or a remake of some kind needs to have a reason to exist. Anime based on manga makes perfect sense. It's a totally different medium. Live action based on an anime almost never makes sense because a television medium already exists and stretchy arms tend to look better in animation. So what makes One Piece different? Well, because it's overwhelming. The first manga was published in 1997 with the first anime episode following in 99, and since then there have been over 1,000 chapters of the manga and over 1,000 episodes of the anime. Thanks, Wikipedia. That's insane. So this show makes sense to get a truncated live-action version for the low-commitment normies who are a little scared of all that story. But any adaptation, even an adaptation of an adaptation, requires some fan service. We normies look to you fans for a pulse check. Do you guys think it's good? If you don't like it, how am I gonna like it? The makers of this show clearly understood all of this, and they have delivered a product that is easy to jump into and understand. It's well-paced and entertaining, and I don't get the impression that it crapped all over the original material in some vain effort to fix whatever offends someone's modern sensibilities or get changed just so some hack can claim that he left his mark. Rafe. They understood the assignment, as the kids say.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What really impresses me about the fan service is that I didn't notice it. Too often when you're watching some kind of adaptation or remake, you can tell the writers just checked the wiki or some surface level thing and they make this heavy-handed reference. And even if you don't get said reference, you can tell they're trying to make a joke that you aren't getting. It's lazy, honestly, and usually it ends up derailing the product because they're trying so very hard to let you know they know. In some previous videos, people have commented they brought the characters to life very well. The casting, very well done. And characters are making offhanded references to people or places that fans are going to recognize, but it's woven in so subtly and naturally that I didn't see it. Apparently, the wanted board from early on contains a bunch of posters for pirates that we won't meet until way later. There are a lot of Easter eggs in the show, but no neon signs pointing them out. Very well done. Of course, we have to talk about the live-action elephant in the room, and that is that you can't fit an elephant in most rooms in real life, but you can with animation. As much as I enjoyed this show, it was still obviously a live adaptation of a zany anime manga. Real people look weird with pink or green hair. The only one that seems to be working for people is orange, so Nami, people are still into you. The stretch effects weren't the worst, but still a little odd at times. Nobody can be as huge or as tiny as the people in anime. Nobody can have the weird proportions that you see in a manga.
The nose plays. And the nose does play. The nose plays.
As much fun as I was having with the show, every now and then I was reminded live action has its limits, especially when you're adapting something kind of crazy like this. But the craziness is one of the things I've loved so far. It's very clear this is a pretty goofy story. It's fun. That's great. It's not taking itself too seriously. It's not being heavy-handed with some political message. It's just having a blast, and it wants you to have a blast right along with it. You got this guy Zoro. He's a great sword fighter, but he's carrying around 3 swords. Where does he put the 3rd sword? Obviously, he uses it in his mouth. How can you not love that? Luffy being sweet and naive and wanting to be this different kind of pirate, it's so endearing, and you're rooting for this guy. The first villain we meet is a big pink pirate queen wielding a spiked duck staff. Then we get a guy with a giant axe for a hand and a metal jaw. We've got a pirate crew with a cat theme, and the fat guy is wearing a half a Batman mask and a cape. It's the kind of stuff that just makes you grin, because it's just irreverent fun. The costumes are hilarious as well. You got Marines whose cover is a ball cap that says Marine. It looks like Garp is wearing white sneakers with that suit. The mishmash of styles is almost too much, but it walks the line. And brother, it walks it hard. What's nice is that all of this silliness still has this underlying theme that teamwork is king, and good is better than bad, even in a world full of pirates. Watching people fall for Luffy's glowing optimism is so sweet, you can't help but love him. At the halfway point, Zoro seems to be on board. Nami is also, except that she did make that ominous phone call, so she might be in the misery business there. And Usopp is an even goofier version of Luffy. You just want the best for this poor kid. What really has me blown away with this show is the show structure. It's so good, it stood out to me, and it's kind of screwing up other shows. It's so clear that a lot of love was poured into this show, and that includes where it would start and stop from episode to episode. So far in the first half, they've gone with a structure that either pairs the episode stories or pairs side or backstories. The first two episodes are a pair explaining Luffy's backstory. By the end of episode 2, we have a full understanding of how he became a pirate, how he got his powers, and why he wants to be a different kind of pirate. The show gives us these pertinent details while the episode plot is playing out to give it more depth. They work together. They're leveraging their synergies. The next pair tell an episode story in 2 parts, and that has a really good break in the middle. We're looking for a ship. We meet a guy that says he knows the owner. We meet Kaya and her staff, and by the end of the episode, we confirm, uh-oh, the butler is evil. Great place to stop. We pick up the next episode dealing with the knowledge that the staff are actually the bad guys, and as we resolve that conflict, it resolves the conflict of not having a ship and what to do with Usopp. You can see how the 2 episodes basically mirror each other, and the 4th episode even includes a backstory for Zoro. That first episode fits in a ton of information and wraps up with character motivations, the defeat of episode villain Morgan, the introduction of series villain Garp, and even has a lead into the next episode villain Buggy. The second episode is a self-contained story about finding Buggy and defeating him, and continues and finalizes the first episode teamwork thing for the original 3 crew members. It's so good. Each episode tells its own story while tackling the larger narrative of Luffy's origin story and how he gets a crew and gets to the Grand Line, I'm guessing. The anime is 1,000 episodes, so this 8-episode live action cannot be anything more than an origin story of him just finding his crew, right? I am very excited to see if the second half of this season follows that same episode pairing format, especially since the halfway point ends on such a great cliffhanger. Garp is Luffy's grandpa? At the halfway, we have everyone's backstory. The only exception is Nami, so I'm guessing we'll see one for her. And I've seen a lot of pictures of this well-dressed blonde fellow, so I'm assuming he's the 5th member of the crew. Something else that caught my attention were the very interesting camera angles. They would use this almost kind of fisheye lens that distorted and blurred the edges, and they would pair that with this super close-up upward angle of people's faces. Now typically that's a very unflattering angle, but combined with the lens and the filters and a little bit of the motion they would add sometimes, it gave a really cool trippy effect. They used it a lot with Buggy to give him a real deranged feeling, and I noticed they also used it a lot with Zoro when he was feeling overwhelmed or determined, or like when he was climbing out of the well. Again, I hate to keep bringing up Ahsoka and Wheel of Time, but these 3 shows are like all I've been watching. In One Piece, even a simple conversation has multiple camera angles and effects. This show is visually interesting all the way down to the shot angle. In those other 2 shows, it's 1 camera per person, and they just cut back and forth during conversations like a freaking podcast. If you're really lucky, you might get a 3rd shot, a wide angle of both of them. That's it. Not One Piece, though. This is a great looking show, and not just because it's, bright and colorful, almost garish. The cinematography and art direction is fantastic here. Sometimes in shows that kind of thing gets overlooked, but it's so good here, I gotta point it out. So obviously I'm loving this show so far. I'm having a great time. I'm into it. It's great. I don't have any characters that I hate that are ruining this show for me. I don't feel confused or lost. It's not boring. I don't feel like I'm missing out on a bunch of jokes. Most importantly, this show kind of has me interested in the anime, which is also on Netflix, and that is a brilliant move by Netflix. This is why I think the show should be for normies, and is for normies, because they've got this live action intro that everybody's talking about. It's very popular right now, and it leads you to another show with tons of episodes that will keep you on their service longer. Very smart. So this normie heartily recommends this show based on the first half. If you are a fellow normie, how do you feel about this show so far? If you are a fan of the anime or the manga, how do you feel about this show as an adaptation? I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.